My name is Maria Dolphin, and I'm about to turn 27. I've been married for 5 years and have a 4-year-old son named Martin. At first, I worked full-time, but now I work part-time at the same company. My husband is 30 years old, 3 years older than me. Kevin Carlton, who I married, seemed sweet when we were dating, but things changed after marriage. He became more controlling. Kevin has a 20-year-old sister named Jane Dalton, and he spoils her a lot, maybe because of their big age gap. Before we got married, I didn't really mind how close Jane and Kevin were. But after tying the knot, I started noticing some changes. Jane frequently drops by our place, and I end up scrambling to cater to her every whim because Kevin always caves into her demands. She shows up unannounced, morning or night, without bringing any gifts or even a thank you. She acts like I'm invisible, only talking to Kevin, saying, "Hey brother, I'm here again." Kevin, oblivious to the fact that I didn't prepare dinner for Jane, asks if she wants to eat. When I try to discreetly mention it to Kevin, he brushes it off, leaving me to serve my own dinner to Jane in the end. Then, loud enough for Jane to hear, he blames me, saying things like, "You should have made more food." Jane looks like she's going to cry and apologizes to me. Kevin comforts her and scolds me, saying things like, "You're not considerate," or "Don't be mean to my sister." Even though Jane apologizes, it's clear she feels reassured by how Kevin takes her side. It's like she enjoys it. I end up making my own meal from leftovers while they eat together. Just as I'm about to join them, Jane tells Kevin she wants to talk alone. Kevin moves me and Martin to another room. This isn't the first time. After we finish eating and clean up, I find them chatting on the sofa. They never bothered to clean up after themselves. It feels like they see me as a maid, not a wife or sister-in-law. They don't even talk to Martin. It's like I'm just a maid bringing my kid to work. I was tidying up the kitchen and getting ready to bathe Martin when Kevin suddenly called me, even though it was almost 8 p.m. He said, "Jane wants cake. Go buy it now. Get it from the shop by the station," telling me exactly where to go. But going out to buy cake would make Martin go to bed late. When I hesitated, Jane insisted, "I want it now," and Kevin rushed me, saying, "It's fine if he stays up a bit longer tonight." Then Kevin started yelling at me, blaming me for having an attitude with Jane around. I knew I'd have to go to the cake shop eventually, so I reluctantly agreed. There's a cake shop near the station that closes at 9 p.m. So if I hurry, I can make it. As I was getting ready to go, I overheard them talking, speaking loudly enough for me to hear. They were saying things like, "She's so thoughtless," and "Why did you marry her?" Since I couldn't leave Martin alone, I decided to take him with me. While I was getting Martin ready, I heard Kevin's loud voice from a living room. "If you defy me again, we'll get a divorce." Martin could hear it too. He might not understand the words, but I think he knows his parents are fighting. Trying to control my emotions, I asked Martin, "What kind of cake would you like?" He perked up and said, "Mom, I want a cake with lots of fruits." So on our way to the cake shop, we chatted about cakes, momentarily forgetting about Kevin's words. We made it to the cake shop just before it closed. Luckily, they had the cake Jane wanted. We bought 2 cakes and the fruit-loaded cake Martin desired. When we got back home, I served the cakes to Jane and Kevin. I prepared Martin's cake and brought it to the dining room. As soon as I set it down in front of Martin, Jane pointed at it and said, "Actually, I want that cake." Before I could respond, Kevin moved Martin's cake in front of Jane. Ignoring Martin's protests, Jane started eating his cake. Kevin justified it by saying, "I bought that cake with my money, so I get to choose." Unable to contain my emotions any longer, I expressed my frustration to Kevin and Jane. Kevin then threatened, "We could get a divorce, you know." Martin stopped crying but held my hand tightly, looking worried. Then, after a moment, Martin said, "Mom, I also love cake with strawberries. It's really yummy." He mentioned it while eating the cake that Jane initially wanted. I feel like I'm putting Martin through too much. 3 adults, myself included, shouldn't be subjecting a 4-year-old child to this. When I saw Jane reaching for Martin's cake, I swiftly moved his plate away. Martin happily followed me to another room, saying, "Yummy, let's go over here." Probably Kevin noticed Jane's attempt too. He apologized to her, saying, "Sorry for being so tight-fisted." I wanted to respond, but I held back, not wanting to expose Martin to the word divorce. Seeing Martin innocently enjoying his cake is heartwarming. After he finished, ignoring Kevin and Jane, We decided to have a late bath and sleep in Martin's bed. The next morning, I woke up to find Jane had already left. I was about to wake up Kevin and Martin and make breakfast when I heard Martin crying. I rushed to him to find his piggy bank, a gift from my father, broken, and all his saved money gone. It was Martin's nightly ritual to bid goodnight to his piggy bank before going to sleep. Last night was no exception. He said goodnight to it and cuddled up with me. At that time, only Kevin and Jane were in the living room. I asked Kevin about the piggy bank. He responded casually, saying that Jane needed some money, so she took it from Martin's piggy bank. Martin was still crying as I held him close. His pain was so palpable that it brought tears to my eyes. It was agonizing to see Kevin prioritize and cater to his sister Jane over our son Martin. Anger and sadness flooded over me simultaneously. "Why are you making a morning so miserable?" Kevin retorted. "Don't you think you did something wrong? Martin is crying so much." For the first time since we got married, I let my anger out towards him. I had always avoided arguing in front of Martin, but I couldn't stay silent seeing him so hurt. Kevin looked at me intensely, then went to the bedroom without saying a word, returning with something in his hand. To my shock, Kevin handed me divorce papers, something I didn't even know he had stashed away. "If you're not happy with me, then let's get a divorce," he declared, thrusting the papers at me before storming out of the house with a loud slam of the door. Martin, who had never shed tears over the issues with Kevin and Jane, seemed to have reached his breaking point. He had been crying since last night, and it broke my heart to see him in such pain. "Hey Martin, how about we skip daycare today?" I suggested, hoping to bring him some comfort. He eagerly agreed with a loud yes, flashing me a faint smile. As Martin brought a picture book from the shelf and settled onto my lap, he looked up at me with joy and asked, "Today, Mama is the teacher at daycare, right?" His innocence was like a ray of sunshine. I couldn't help but marvel at his resilience. Today, I decided that we would spend the day playing and cherishing each moment together to fill his heart with happiness. I might be causing some inconvenience at work, but when I explained the situation, they kindly granted me a day off, advising me to spend quality time with Martin. In the morning, we headed to the park, played games like hide and seek, and had a blast on the swings and slides. Upon returning home for lunch, Martin seemed tired and soon dozed off on my lap, just like he used to when he was a baby. Normally, I would use this time to catch up on chores. But today felt different, so I decided to cherish the moment and enjoy watching him sleep peacefully. As I started to drift off myself, I was startled by a noise from the front door. It was too early for Kevin to be back, so I felt uneasy. Quickly, I scooped up Martin, and grabbing only my bag with essentials, I hurriedly hid with him in the bedroom closet. I froze as I sensed someone entering the house, holding my breath as I heard a familiar voice. The person seemed to be searching for something, muttering, "I can't find it." Where did the wife hide it? Fear gripped me as I listened to the sound of rummaging, but as I focused on the voice, I recognized it. It was Jane. Questions flooded my mind. Why did she have a key? What was she searching for? I cautiously cracked open the closet door to see what she was up to. She was rifling through drawers and cabinets, then let out a frustrated sigh before making a phone call. "I searched where you said, but it's not there." "Yeah, I checked there too. If it's not there, it's a waste of time." "Okay, got it. Heading home now," she said, mentioning Kevin's name. Kevin? I wondered what they were searching for. I heard the front door lock, and when it was safe, I put Martin to bed and pondered the strange events. I was certain Kevin was involved in whatever they were looking for. If they were searching for something unknown, could it be one of my possessions? Despite their earlier conversation, I couldn't decipher why Jane had suddenly appeared at our house. Kevin felt like a stranger to me, and I was overcome with a mix of disgust and fear towards him. Hastily, I packed the essentials for Martin and myself. By the time Martin woke from his nap, I was ready to leave. "Martin, let's go to Grandpa's house," I said, and we made our way to the station, catching a train to my parents' home. Thankfully, it was just 2 stops away, so we arrived swiftly. Since I hadn't informed them beforehand, my parents were surprised, but they sensed something was wrong and welcomed us without prying. Their dog, a favorite of Martin's, greeted him eagerly, and they began playing together. Watching them, I felt a sense of relief and proceeded to recount everything that had happened with Kevin and Jane. "Perhaps Jane was searching for your bank cards," my mother suggested. It made sense. Before getting married, I had founded a successful online shop for handmade goods with friends. As the CEO of the handmade industry, I gained recognition, but when the shop flourished, I decided to focus on raising my child. I've entrusted my company to trusted friends while I focus on raising my child. I work part-time and handle most tasks from home. Though I'm still the CEO, Kevin is unaware of this. He knows about my previous role and likely suspects I have savings. I've informed him that I receive assistance from the company but left out the CEO details, letting him assume I stepped down. I haven't disclosed the full extent of my CEO position or savings to Kevin for a reason. Shortly after our marriage, I discovered his poor money management skills. He spends everything he earns. He allocates only $200 monthly for food expenses and suggested I quit my job to be a full-time housewife, an idea I never agreed to given the financial strain of such a small allowance. After some persuasion, he reluctantly agreed to let me work part-time at my current company. To ensure I wouldn't consider divorce, he even had me sign a post-marital property waiver with a lawyer. Since Martin's birth, I've been allotted only $200 for food expenses. Consequently, I've been using my savings to cover Martin's nursery fees and clothing expenses. I've refrained from asking Kevin for money beyond the food budget, leading him to assume I have substantial savings. Jane appears to be in dire need of money, and with Kevin's belief in my savings, they may be searching for my cash cards. It all makes sense now. I maintain a separate savings account dedicated to slowly accumulating funds for Martin's future. A portion of my salary is automatically deposited into this account each month. Given their financial circumstances, it's highly likely they are seeking my cash cards. No matter how hard Jane or Kevin search, they won't find my valuables because I always keep them close, including my cash cards. However, there's still an unresolved issue. Jane might be entering our house even when we're not there, possibly with Kevin's knowledge. Following my father's advice, I decided to store my valuables in my parents' safe. Why are they so desperate for money? As I pondered this question, Martin tearfully approached my father, explaining that his piggy bank had been broken, and he couldn't keep his promise to save up. My father's face flushed with anger upon hearing Martin's story. "I'll call Kevin and talk to him," my mother suggested. While chiding my father, "Let's find out their motives." She reasoned that since Kevin had mentioned divorce, he might try to blame us and make the divorce more favorable for himself. Therefore, it's essential to calmly uncover their motives now to prevent them from escaping with excuses later on. I decided to secretly record their conversation to uncover their motives. My parents suggested consulting a lawyer who was a longtime family friend. Once back home, I started cooking dinner as usual when Kevin returned. I discreetly began recording on my phone, keeping the screen face down to avoid detection. To my surprise, Kevin immediately asked me where I kept my cash cards. When I questioned his sudden interest, he provided vague answers, attempting to deceive me. Remaining silent, I watched as Kevin's demeanor shifted to one of numbness and sadness. "Give me all your part-time earnings for my sister," he demanded, but I refused, explaining that the money was for Martin's savings. This enraged Kevin, who then angrily pushed divorce papers toward me from his bag. "You're relying on my money, so don't defy me," he retorted, dismissing the importance of saving for Martin. His words implied a greater value placed on Jane over Martin, leaving me stunned and disheartened. Upon hearing Kevin's words, I halted my meal preparations, calmly placed the divorce papers into the bag I had prepared earlier, and grasped Martin's hand, leading him to the door. Kevin's voice boomed behind us, declaring, "I'm serious about the divorce. Don't ever return." In response, I asserted, "I won't return to a home where anyone can come and go as they please," before departing. Was it too harsh to label my sister-in-law as a stranger? Following my departure, I was bombarded with messages and calls from Kevin, all of which I chose to ignore. I powered off my phone and sought refuge at my parents' house. There, I played the recording of Kevin's conversation and showed them the completed divorce papers. My parents simply advised, "Do as you see fit." I didn't harbor any love or affection for Kevin, but I still cared deeply for Martin. Some advised me to divorce Kevin to spare Martin's feelings, but I feared that divorcing could also hurt Martin. Amidst this inner turmoil, Martin voiced his hunger, prompting my mother to whip up his favorite dish, hamburgers. Tears welled up in my eyes as my mother, with a gentle smile, said to Martin, "I made these hamburgers so you and Mom can visit us anytime." After taking a bite, Martin beamed and exclaimed, "Grandma's hamburgers are the best. I want them every day," his joyful words tugging on heartstrings. I replied, "It's because these hamburgers are made with all the love I have for you," as he sweetly fed me a bite. Overwhelmed by his kindness, tears streamed down my cheeks uncontrollably. I tried to suppress them, but they kept flowing. My father reassured Martin, who was alarmed by my tears, saying, "Mommy is crying because she's so happy you gave her this hamburger. These are tears of joy, not sadness," he explained tenderly. Martin, in his innocence, remarked, "This hamburger is so yummy. If Jane were here, she'd love it too." Hearing this, I couldn't hold back my tears, and I embraced him tightly, while my father's eyes filled with emotion. Turning to Martin, I said, "Being with family is a blessing, isn't it?" He looked puzzled and asked, "Didn't Dad say only Jane is family? Is my family just Mom, Grandpa, and Grandma?" My father responded gently, "Yes, that's right," then asked Martin, "Would you like to stay here with us as family?" Martin chuckled and replied, "Of course. We're family," bringing smiles to everyone's faces. When was the last time we had such a natural meal? When did we last enjoy a meal filled with endless laughter and conversation? Despite contemplating divorce, the happiness of this meal persuaded me to finally part ways with Kevin. I planned to break the news to Martin, though the thought weighed heavily on my heart. Surprisingly, Martin seemed to understand and embrace the idea of divorce, expressing, "We'll still be a family." He happily cuddled our pet dog, affectionately referring to him as his little brother, despite the dog being older. With resolve, I began preparations for the divorce. Firstly, I promptly contacted a lawyer who was a friend of my father, arranging to meet the following day. That night, Martin slept with my father and the dog, their faint laughter bringing me comfort as I lay in bed with my mother, reminiscing about my childhood. The next morning, upon checking my smartphone, I found over 200 missed calls and messages from Kevin, reflecting his emotional turmoil. Just the sight of it drained me, prompting me to switch off my phone once more. Today, I met with the lawyer, discussing the details and confirming my decision to divorce. We finalized the paperwork, and the lawyer will meet with Kevin tomorrow to proceed. After some time, the lawyer visited my parents' house to discuss the situation. It turned out that Jane had accrued a substantial debt from gambling and excessive shopping, with Kevin serving as her guarantor. When Jane couldn't make the repayments, they devised a plan to tap into my savings. Now, Kevin wants me and Martin back and is retracting his desire for a divorce, the lawyer explained. However, the divorce papers I had submitted earlier had already been processed. When asked if this meant the divorce was finalized, the lawyer confirmed it, stating, "Yes, it's been accepted." Kevin appeared to break down, expressing his fear of losing me to another man. Despite his emotional plea, knowing that everything was settled brought me a sense of peace. I anticipated arguments over child support, but Kevin even pledged to pay $340 to support Martin every month. Later, Kevin called me. Feeling relieved after the divorce proceedings, I decided to speak with him briefly. His tone was no longer aggressive. Instead, he spoke calmly. He confessed that he believed keeping me financially dependent would prevent me from seeking a divorce. He also acknowledged his tendency to spoil his younger sister, Jane, as a misguided form of sibling love. He admitted feeling jealous of Martin, fearing he had lost me to our son. "Once I've resolved Jane's debts, I'll come back for you. Please don't remarry until then," he pleaded. However, I firmly reiterated that I no longer loved him and wouldn't reconsider our relationship. Before hanging up, I could hear him sobbing softly as he whispered, "Please be happy. Did I manage to stay strong until the end?" Discussing future plans with my parents, I decided to remain at their house until Martin grows up, and he transferred to a different nursery. Returning to my role as company president, I explained the situation to my colleagues. Later, I learned that Kevin and Jane had disclosed the divorce and their debt to their parents, resulting in their disarmament. More than the financial issues, their parents were incensed about never seeing their grandson again. Now, Kevin and Jane, once close, reside in a modest apartment, constantly blaming each other. Their actions have led to their own downfall. Today, I find happiness in being with my family.
I'm Emily. Jake, my older brother by 2 years, is a scientist. He's living his dream of working in research and seems really happy with it, even though he's busy all day. Our son, Mike, is 3 years old, just like Jake. He loves watching and trying out new things. Right now, he's really into the goldfish he caught at the fall festival. Our daughter, Sarah, is 1 year old. She loves to eat, and her chubby cheeks are just so cute. She brings so much happiness to our home. Life is pretty good for our regular family, except for one thing. Emily, what are we having for dinner tonight? Mother-in-law. Just as I was trying to calm down my crying daughter and finish cooking dinner, the doorbell rang without warning. My mother-in-law strolled into our house, as she often does around this time. While it's not always on the same day each week, her visits are frequent enough that my son hardly even glances away from the TV. My goodness, fried food again. That's not good, too oily. You should take better care of Jake's stomach when he comes home tired from work. It's not good for the grandkids either. But Mike really enjoys it. Well, that's because you only give him junk. Look, I've made a creamy vegetable stew and minestrone for you. It's important for the kids to get used to Western food from an early age. My mother-in-law began setting the table with the large containers of creamy stew and minestrone she brought. It's a lot, enough to last for at least 3 days, and I felt a bit disheartened just looking at the stew, which was mostly carrots and cabbage. Come on, snap out of it. I'll take the food you made home with me, so go ahead and pack it up. It's not tasty, but we can't waste food. This was routine. Last time she visited unexpectedly, she replaced my clam chowder with her own fried chicken. She left without even sparing a glance at her grandchildren, clutching the still warm container. Once the front door closed, my son turned to me. Softly, Grandma took my fried chicken again. My heart ached seeing the sadness on my son's face. Don't worry, there's a little bit of meat left. Just wait a moment. Yay! As I heated up the oil again, I felt relieved seeing my son's joyful reaction to my words. However, my inner dissatisfaction lingered. My mother-in-law had become increasingly intrusive since my marriage, and it had worsened over the last year. Every week, she showed up unannounced during dinner prep time. Initially, she would just criticize my cooking and parenting, then leave her cream stew on the counter. But for the past 6 months, she started taking my food home with her, effectively ruining our meal. I couldn't fathom my mother-in-law, who lived alone since my father-in-law passed away, eating all 3 servings. She was probably throwing it away. As I prepared baby food and distracted the kids, I managed to cook. It was tough, but seeing my family's happy faces kept me going. Yet, my fried chicken, braised pork, mapo tofu, and hamburgers, all of it, got taken away. I grew up in a family that owned a restaurant, and my dad taught me how to cook, so I'm pretty confident in my culinary skills. And honestly, I think my food tastes better than my mother-in-law's overly sweet cream stew. It bothers me to have my abilities undermined by her, but with Mike in the picture, I've been finding it hard to stand up to my mother-in-law, who is also his grandma. More cream stew? Jake, who comes home after the kids have gone to sleep, makes a face when he sees dinner. Since only Mike's share of fried chicken was left, I served Jake a large platter of the cream stew. What can I do? It's what my mother-in-law brings over. If you don't like it, you can tell her. Yeah, I guess. Jake pokes at the stew, showing little enthusiasm. He shows up without considering Sarah's nap time and even takes away Mike's favorite foods right in front of him. Well, she's lonely since Dad died. That was 2 years ago. How much longer do I have to put up with this? Yeah, I guess. Jake is usually dependable, but he avoids confrontation when it comes to his mother-in-law. Another fruitless conversation passes, and I let out a deep sigh. The only positive thing is that she hasn't suggested moving in. One day, tired of the usual routine, my mother-in-law drops a bombshell during dinner. Instead of her typical greeting, she announces, Emily, this Christmas, everyone's gathering at our place. What? But after your father passed away last year, we haven't really been able to do much. We've relied on relatives from Dad's side since the funeral, so I'm inviting them to our home as a way of saying thank you, she explains. Sounds exhausting, I respond, lacking enthusiasm. I wonder how she plans to host suddenly when we've always gathered at her brother-in-law's or her own childhood home for Christmas and family reunions. She frowns at me, as if dealing with someone of lesser intelligence. You're not just a bystander here. You'll be helping too, she declares. What? Come over on the 24th and help clean up, she adds, surprising me with her audacious decision. But Sarah is so young. Just use a baby carrier or something. That's how women used to do it back in the day, she suggests, brushing aside my objections. Maybe, but you're also in charge of the full-course Christmas meal. Don't you dare repackage store-bought food or cook anything that tastes bad. I don't want to be embarrassed, she warns. What? You can't be serious, I protest. I'm thinking of inviting your dad's relatives on one day and my sister's family and our daughter on another. It'll be a busy holiday, she continues, though her complaints are tinged with a hint of satisfaction. Hold on, the one who's going to be busy is me, not you. As the daughter-in-law of this family's eldest son, do your duty properly, LOK, she concludes before leaving me stunned and my son surprised. She doesn't forget to pack the shrimp gratin that just needs to be baked. That night, when I share my mother-in-law's plans with Jake, he's just as puzzled as I am. What? She's organizing a party on Christmas Eve? Inviting Dad's side of the family when he's not here. Yeah, that's the idea, I confirm. Well, maybe Mom's feeling lonely, Jake suggests. I finally lose my temper at Jake's predictable response. Think about what it's like for me, always being pushed around. Seeing Jake's expression shift to one of realization, he falls silent. Even he understands that this time, it's too much, and he lets out a resigned sigh. All right, I'll handle the cleaning and entertaining the relatives. Really? I'm relieved to hear Jake's offer. It gives me some direction. But can you still cook the full-course Christmas meal? He asks. Just for this year. Let's keep Mom's reputation intact. Plus, everyone in the family loves your cooking, he pleads, eyeing the meatloaf his mother left for us. I mean, it's hard to say no after making a concession, he adds. Fine, just for this year. Thanks, man. I can't wait for Emily's Christmas feast. I say, grateful for his understanding. Geez, you're in high spirits, aren't you? Jake remarks, smiling. Being praised isn't so bad, and I don't mind cooking for people. So I prepare myself mentally, knowing it's just for this time, and agree to prepare a full-course Christmas meal. When I inform my mother-in-law that Jake will stay over to help with cleaning, she makes a displeased face and says, how could you let the man of the house do such things? But she seems reasonably satisfied, seeing Jake bustling around at his parents' home for my sake. Then comes Christmas lunchtime. Emily, is the corn soup ready? My mother-in-law asks. I'm preparing the croutons now, I reply, scurrying around the kitchen to get the carpaccio and corn soup ready. You're so inefficient. I'll bring the food myself, she criticizes. I'm sorry. If you're going to complain, try preparing a meal for 20 people. It's really, truly exhausting, I retort, feeling the strain of the day. Finally, the serving is done, and I sit down at the party, relieved to have made it through. Jake seems to have settled our daughter down for a nap in another room. Despite the challenge of preparing a full-course Christmas meal for 20 people, it's gratifying to see everyone relishing my cooking. However, this feeling of satisfaction is short-lived. This quiche looks so beautiful. It's like something you'd buy, someone compliments. Ah, thank you, I reply, feeling a bit uneasy. You're good at flattery. This carrot slaw is perfectly balanced with the vinegar. The orange scent really freshens up your mouth, another guest remarks. That's because Christmas meals tend to be rich, so I made it a bit more acidic, I explain. Something feels off. Every time someone tries to praise my Christmas cooking, my mother-in-law interrupts with her own commentary. Finally, Sophia, father-in-law's sister, unwittingly unveils the source of the awkwardness. Emily, your mother-in-law is such a great cook, isn't she? Excuse me? I respond, taken aback. Unfazed, Sophie continues, did Olivia make this entire Christmas feast? That's amazing. Huh? I haven't cooked a full-course Christmas meal in ages. I was going to leave it to my daughter-in-law, but she's absolutely terrible in the kitchen and she never comes by. Even when I offer to teach her, my mother-in-law chimes in, completely disregarding the truth. I'm left dumbfounded by her audacious claims. Oh, Emily, you should really take after Olivia while she's still well. Jake might miss the taste of home sometimes, you know? The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. She adds, seemingly offering advice but actually delivering a veiled insult. Daniel, a relative nearby, laughs, adding to my discomfort. You know, Olivia, that pork belly stew you made last time was delicious. It's amazing you can cook both Western and Japanese dishes. It's not that big of a deal, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. My mother-in-law replies with false modesty, knowing full well that the pork belly stew was my creation. As I stand there, stunned, she silently mouths, "Go along with it." It becomes apparent that she's been claiming credit for all my dishes, including the Christmas feast, and sharing them with the family. Now she wants me to go along with her lie. No way! Especially after all the times she criticized my cooking. Even though I want to speak up, I feel overwhelmed by the crowd and can't find my voice. But then my son comes to the rescue. "Mom, this omelet is really tasty. It looks different than usual, but your omelets are always good." His young voice cuts through the noise, silencing the adults. "Oh, Mike, this is actually quiche your grandmother made." Sophia tries to cover for him, probably out of kindness, but my son is adamant. "Huh? But it's tasty, so it's got to be Mom's omelet." Grandma's omelet is super sweet and gritty. It doesn't taste good. He insists passionately, waving his hands around, leaving the adults looking puzzled. Of course, my mother-in-law panics. "Emily, don't teach the child to lie." "Excuse me? Who's the one lying here, Mom? Am I a liar?" Mike looks up at me, his face full of uncertainty. That's when I felt my anger rising. I felt silly. I didn't care what people thought of my mother-in-law or Jake. I tolerated her because she's Jake's mom and Mike's grandma, but turning my grandson into a liar just to save face? That's not right. If she's going to make my child lie, I'll stand up for what's right, even if it means being seen as the bad guy. I took a deep breath and stood tall. "Mike isn't a liar. You're the one lying, Grandma." "Huh." She looked surprised. She probably didn't expect me to confront her. I stood up and pointed dramatically at the table. "I made this entire Christmas meal, including the corn soup, from start to finish." "What?" The room erupted in shock. My flustered mother-in-law began to panic and shout, Wait, Emily, you're lying. Are you out of your mind?" "I'm not lying, Sophia. You said you got the pork belly stew from Grandma, right?" I turned to Sophia, who looked surprised. "Ah, yes, it was delicious," Sophia admitted. "I made that too," I revealed. "Huh?" Sophia looked bewildered. "You're terrible, taking credit for Jake's mom's cooking and trying to frame her. You're the worst daughter-in-law." "Then can you tell me the recipe for the pork belly stew, mother-in-law?" I challenged. "What? Well," she hesitated, then suddenly exclaimed, "It's a secret. It's a secret family recipe, so I can't tell you in public." "You don't have to give details or measurements, just the basics," I insisted. Even the relatives who were disgusted by our petty fight started to see who was in the right. "Emily, that's enough," my husband Jake intervened. He had apparently finished putting our daughter to sleep and silently appeared near the door, restraining me with a stern voice and face. My mother-in-law clung to Jake as if he was her ally, looking like a tragic heroine. "Jake, what's up with your daughter-in-law?" "She's calling me a liar. That's awful, Mom." "You're the awful one here." "What?" Mother-in-law's mouth dropped open. "This entire Christmas feast? Emily made it all?" "Yes, she did, while taking care of the kids. Trying to take credit for it is pretty low, Jake," I affirmed. "Sophia, the only thing Mom made is that massive bowl of creamy stew over there." "Have you tried it?" Jake pointed out. "Huh? Yeah," Sophia responded, visibly shaken. "Yeah, it was insanely sweet, wasn't it? Mom thinks if it's sweet, it's tasty. She's always been so cautious about salt and oil, but uses sugar with no limits, so all of her dishes taste like a block of sugar," Jake explained. "Is that so? The pork belly stew was probably made by my daughter-in-law too. If you got any other dishes from Mom recently, they were likely made by Emily," Jake continued. "Really? Even that meatloaf?" Sophia asked. "That was me. and the mapo tofu and shrimp gratin. That was me, I confirmed. Everyone in the family was disillusioned with mother-in-law because of her own son's revelation. Isn't that right, Mom? Jake challenged. Mother-in-law, exposed for all her lies, started panicking. It seemed like she had given up on lying and was now trying to appeal to Jake's emotions. Why? Why are you siding with your daughter-in-law? I'm your mom, she pleaded. I didn't want to have to say this either, Mom, Jake responded solemnly. I thought you were just lonely because Dad isn't here, so I've been having Emily put up with you. But this isn't anything but harassment towards her. There's no reason to protect you anymore. Don't see Emily or the kids ever again, Jake firmly tells his mother, dismissing her pleas. He starts cleaning up the Christmas feast and then apologizes to the relatives. I'm sorry for the disturbance this Christmas, Emily. Mike, let's go, Jake says as he takes Mike's hand and stands up. Mike looks at his grandmother and asks, Grandma, where's your I'm sorry? Huh? When you lie, you say I'm sorry, then you get forgiven, right? Isn't that right, Mom? Mike questions. Huh? His grandmother stammers, unable to respond. I get it. You have to be forgiving when it comes to raising kids, but a simple sorry isn't going to cut it, Jake remarks. Seeing his mother's reluctance to apologize, he sighs in resignation. Grandma can't even say I'm sorry, and she's supposed to be an adult. How sad. Let's go home and have Mom's delicious Christmas feast, okay? Jake suggests to Mike. Oh, we left behind a growling mother-in-law and confused relatives, carrying our sleeping daughter and the Christmas feast as we left Mike's house. We went straight to my parents' place and served the Christmas feast. Everyone was delighted and ate with joy. This is what I had been striving for, so my heart was full. Jake, of course, apologized profusely and promised never to let us meet mother-in-law again. The atmosphere at my house stayed uncomfortable. The relatives left, leaving only my mother-in-law and some bland food. The next day, my mother-in-law's sister, her husband, and Jake's sister visited as promised. When they saw the bland food, they laughed and said, "We expected as much." It seems my mother-in-law's lack of cooking skills was well known among her relatives. So you boasted about hosting a Christmas feast? I wondered what trick you'd pull, they teased. Maybe you're just jealous of Emily, who's good at cooking and praised by Jake and Mike. Sorry for the inconvenience, they added. After hearing the details from Jake, my sister-in-law thanked me for my efforts. I'm sorry for jumping to conclusions. Turns out Sophia also enjoys cooking, and we bonded over a recipe for braised pork belly, she said. The misunderstanding with Jake was cleared up, and I found new friends who share my cooking hobby. I felt refreshed, enjoying a carefree Christmas. Of course, my mother-in-law wasn't going to give up easily, but I was prepared. As I was making cornbread, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. She was furious on the other end of the line. Excuse me, where are you? It's dinner time. Do your duty as a wife. Are you making the same mistake in coming over again? She scolded. No thanks, I replied. What? You'll be the one left out by the family, she warned. That won't be a problem. Actually, it was you who got shunned by the relatives. I've even made plans to cook with Sophia next time, I informed her. What? Mother-in-law probably never imagined that I'd become close to father-in-law's side of the family. I informed my mother-in-law that I wouldn't be returning to her house. Instead, my kids and I have been staying at my parents' house since Christmas. We're planning to find a new place to live now that the holidays are over. Despite my mother-in-law's insistence on living near her, Jake's workplace is closer to my parents' house. Since my mother-in-law couldn't heed Jake's warning to stay away from me, we've decided to physically distance ourselves. Right now, Jake is the only one living at his parents' house, and he'll leave once he's ready. When my mother-in-law demanded to know where we were, I simply responded that she couldn't get away with not cherishing Jake's mom. However, I reminded her that both Jake and his sister had forgiven her, so it was okay. With that, I thanked her for everything and said goodbye before hanging up and blocking her number to ensure I never had to hear her voice again. 2 years later, my family eagerly waits for my cooking in the living room, playing around as I fry burgers in the kitchen. It warms my heart to see them eagerly awaiting my cooking with smiles on their faces.
My name is Emily, and at 43 years old, I find myself navigating life's twists and turns alone. 2 years ago, my husband John, who was my age, was taken by a sudden heart attack. His absence left a void that seemed insurmountable. We had hoped for children, but fate had different plans, leaving us in a silent ache of unfulfilled dreams. Guilt often washed over me, knowing John's deep longing for fatherhood. Yet in his wisdom, he reassured me, our happiness doesn't depend on children. It's in cherishing each other, just the two of us. We held on to those words tightly, crafting moments of joy amidst our shared sorrow. But life's capriciousness had another chapter in store for me. In a cruel twist, just as we found solace in each other's company, I found myself grappling with the stark loneliness of his absence. In this unforgiving reality, circumstances led me to reside alone under the same roof as my late husband's mother, a woman with whom I frequently found myself at odds. Our living arrangement became the result of John's parents' divorce, with his father now a presence in our shared dwelling, a two-family abode offering the only solace in an otherwise strained situation. Yet, as time passed, my mother-in-law's visits grew more frequent, perhaps driven by a longing for her departed son. I couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Her demeanor was often overbearing, punctuated by subtle jabs. "What exactly do you mean by that?" I would inquire, bracing for the inevitable sting of her words. "It's because he ended up with someone like you that John's no longer with us. You bear some responsibility," she would assert, her accusations as sharp as ever. Her reproaches were nothing new, but each time they cut deeper. "Are you seriously suggesting that I'm to blame?" I challenged, grappling with the weight of her accusations. "Perhaps he fell ill because you couldn't manage his diet properly. I suspect your cooking was too rich. His weight gain after marriage speaks volumes," my mother-in-law asserted, her words like barbs aimed directly at my heart. While it was true that John had put on weight since our wedding day, he always praised my cooking and savored each meal with genuine delight. His kindness knew no bounds. Even if the food had been supper, he'd have eaten it without complaint. "If only you had been more vigilant about his health, this tragedy could have been avoided," she continued, her tone heavy with accusation. These words, delivered by my mother-in-law in the somber days before John's funeral 2 years ago, struck me like a thunderbolt. Blaming me for John's illness and passing was a cruel twist of fate, one that left me reeling with pain. Though I knew the accusations were unfounded, the constant repetition took a toll on my psyche, making an already difficult time merely unbearable. For my mother-in-law, Joe must have been the center of her universe. The abrupt and untimely loss of her beloved son must have been excruciating. I could empathize with her struggle to contain her emotions. However, her attacks on me intensified with each passing day, a development I had sadly anticipated. "Because of you, my precious son is gone. Were you plotting to inherit his insurance money all along?" she accused, her words cutting like daggers. How many times must I deny such baseless accusations? "It's simply not true," I retorted, trying to maintain my composure. "You deliberately avoided having children just to claim his insurance money, didn't you? You're a devious woman," she spat venomously. As a couple, we longed for children and pursued every avenue, including medical assistance. But despite our efforts, we were unable to conceive. "The notion of profiting from insurance is ludicrous," I explained, my patience wearing thin. "Do you honestly believe I would fall for such a charade?" she scoffed, her disbelief palpable. "Each day without John is a torment for me. I can't pretend to be anything other than what I am," I replied, my voice tinged with sorrow. "Why do you utter such cruelty? It would have been better if you had never been part of our lives. Why did Joe have to endure this? Your words are unbearable. I can't bear the thought of never seeing my son again," she lamented, her anguish pouring out in waves. "What would John think if he heard you now? Pointing fingers won't bring him back. Joe was a remarkable and hardworking son. His loss is incomprehensible. It would have been easier if you were here. There's a line you don't cross. Some things are better left unsaid." Oh, I'm just talking to myself, voicing thoughts that have been haunting me. "It's nothing you need to concern yourself with. What's your ultimate point? Leave? And why should I leave? Your presence is suffocating. I won't demand it today, but please vacate this house at the earliest. Since John's passing, Ownership rightfully belongs to me. After John's passing, you've probably got your eye on the insurance money and the house, haven't you? She accused, her tone heavy with suspicion. You're making wild assumptions. I wasn't even aware of any insurance payout until after he passed. I defended myself, feeling the weight of her distrust bearing down on me. Her discovery of the insurance payout seemed to fuel her suspicions, as if she believed I had orchestrated John's death to secure the house and money. No matter how hard I tried to reason with her, she remained steadfast in her mistrust. I felt like I was reaching my breaking point. Living under the same roof was becoming unbearable, each day more mentally draining than the last. The next day, the tension boiled over. You must be living the high life now. No need to worry about work with all that insurance money rolling in. Is that why you're here, to rub it in? She sneered, her words laced with bitterness. It's not fair to twist my words like that. I can't take these constant jabs. I understand you're grieving for John, but it's not right to lash out at me. I miss him just as much and feel the ache of his absence every day, I replied, trying to maintain my composure amidst the storm of accusations. Seriously, spare me the act. You've got it made with the house and money, don't you? Playing the devoted wife role, I see, she sneered, her tone dripping with sarcasm. I won't entertain such accusations. We face our own struggles, particularly with not having children, but I loved John deeply and envisioned a future filled with cherished moments together, I countered, trying to hold onto my dignity amidst her onslaught. It's astounding how you can speak so freely with everything falling into place for you. Must be nice having life handed to you on a silver platter, she retorted, her words cutting deep. That's a heartless thing to say. If I could trade the money and the house just to have John back, I'd do it without a second thought, I confess, my voice tinged with sorrow. Ah, so you're implying you don't need the insurance money then? She pressed, a hint of skepticism in her tone. Why would you even suggest such a thing? Just because I don't need it doesn't mean I'll refuse it. This money represents John's last gesture of love and concern for my future without him. I intend to honor that sentiment, I replied firmly, determined not to let her diminish the significance of John's final gift to me. You have no shame, she spat, her disdain evident in her tone. Feeling the strain of our cohabitation weighing heavily upon us both, I summoned the courage to broach a topic that had been weighing on my mind. Can we put an end to this arrangement? I proposed, hoping for a resolution to our ongoing conflict. What do you mean? She inquired, her tone wary. We argue every day, and it's taking a toll on both of us. I believe it's in our best interest to part ways, I explained, bracing myself for her response. That sounds like the most sensible option. Please make arrangements to vacate the premises soon, she replied, her words tinged with finality. It's you who should be leaving. This house belongs to me, I countered, feeling a surge of indignation. I can't believe you're trying to evict me. You're even more heartless than I thought. The house is too large for me alone. I'm contemplating selling it and settling elsewhere. Besides, properties in this area fetch a good price, I declared, determined to assert my own interests in the face of her hostility. Seems like every conversation with you circles back to money. How much is enough for you? If you're considering selling, why not just hand the house over to me? It'll be too much for you to manage alone, and the expenses, like property taxes, could become overwhelming. I could help you find a more suitable living situation, like an apartment. Are you suggesting I pay rent to stay in my own home? If selling is your plan, then consider handing it over to me. Renting an apartment would likely be more economical than maintaining this entire house. I can't commit to monthly rent payments, but I'm willing to contribute towards it. If that's the arrangement, so be it. I'm relieved to finally break free from living under the same roof with you. I always feared it would come to this. Just promise me you'll provide financial support. Agreed. Let's start the search for an apartment soon. So, we made the decision to go our separate ways. Despite our complicated relationship, my mother-in-law is the mother of my late husband, John. I feel a duty to support her, especially considering her financial struggles. With this in mind, I began the search for a suitable apartment for her. I feel like I've let you down. The diagnosis was a cerebral hemorrhage, but thankfully, it wasn't life-threatening. I spent 2 months in the hospital, including my recovery time. Throughout my stay, my mother-in-law never once came to visit. It was my parents and sister who took turns caring for me. Their unwavering support allowed me to regain almost normalcy in my daily life, with only minor lingering symptoms. And before I knew it, my 2-month hospital stay had passed, and the day of my discharge had arrived. I had initially planned to temporarily stay at my parents' place, but upon returning home to gather my belongings, I was greeted by a startling sight. What? Where's the house? What happened? I exclaimed, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My mother-in-law appeared as though she had been expecting me. Congratulations on being discharged. I didn't expect you to look so well. It seems there are minimal lingering effects and I can resume my usual routine. I'm relieved to hear that you're doing better. But what happened to the house while I was in the hospital? I inquired, my mind reeling with questions. Well, you see, I sold it for around $150,000, she replied matter-of-factly. What do you mean you sold it without consulting me? I demanded, incredulous. I had a friend who was eager to live in this area. Her husband works nearby, and they needed a place urgently, so I went ahead and sold it, she explained casually. Selling it without even informing me is completely unacceptable, I protested, feeling a surge of anger. It's not that big of a deal. I received an offer right after you were hospitalized. I figured even if you recovered, you might struggle to live independently and could end up in a care facility, so I made the decision on my own. Don't be upset, she said, trying to justify her actions. I can't believe this. Thanks to me finding a buyer, we got $150,000 from selling the house, she added, as though it were a positive outcome. I can't believe it. While I was in the hospital, my mother-in-law sold the house without consulting me. Apparently, their acquaintance had always coveted the land surrounding my house, and my mother-in-law took it upon herself to arrange a private sale, I recounted, feeling a mix of shock and betrayal. Are you seriously considering selling someone's house without their consent and pocketing the proceeds? I questioned, appalled by her audacity. But the house was originally in John's name, wasn't it? She countered, attempting to justify her actions. While that may be true, I fail to see how that concerns you, I replied, growing increasingly frustrated. Anything that belonged to my son John is rightfully mine, she asserted, her tone unyielding. You seem to conveniently interpret things in your favor, but that's not how ownership works, I retorted, feeling exasperated. What exactly are you implying? She challenged. When John passed away, the title of the house transferred to my name, I explained, hoping to clarify the situation. And what's your point? She asked, seemingly unfazed. Selling a house without the owner's consent is bordering on criminal behavior, I stated firmly, unable to hide my disbelief. Please refrain from calling me a criminal, she snapped defensively. Who would have thought you'd consider life as usual after hearing about the cerebral hemorrhage? That doesn't give you the right to sell it, I argued, struggling to contain my frustration. Why the hostile expression? Do you honestly believe you'd win in court? How about we split it 50-50? That way, we each get $75,000, she suggested nonchalantly. It's not about the money, I snapped, feeling my anger rising. Then why are you so upset? While I was hospitalized, she single-handedly sold her house and used the proceeds to purchase a condo for herself. Strangely enough, there was a condo neighboring our old house for sale at around $75,000, and she's currently residing there. To top it off, she relocated my belongings to her new place. It seems that during those 2 months of my hospitalization, she doubted the severity of my condition and took it upon herself to make significant decisions. It was time to confront the self-centered woman with the truth. The house is no longer in my name, I revealed, my voice tinged with resignation. What do you mean? I demanded, struggling to comprehend her actions. I started the process of selling the house while I was in the hospital, she confessed. And what of it? I pressed, my frustration mounting. Due to its prime location, the sale was swiftly arranged. I was meant to handle the paperwork post-discharge, but it's already been finalized, so there's no turning back, she explained matter-of-factly. You must cancel it immediately, I insisted, feeling the surge of urgency. It's my property, so I see no reason to cancel, she countered, her tone firm. You need to explain the situation to your acquaintance and return the $150,000. I urged, hoping she would see reason. What are you suggesting? I've already purchased a condo, she revealed, her response leaving me speechless. So you're only willing to return half of it? I asked, feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief. Then you'll need to sell the apartment you're currently residing in to repay the remaining sum, won't you? I pressed, determined to find a solution. My clients are also considering demolishing the house, so it's convenient for them. I need to proceed with the necessary procedures, so please arrange for the refund promptly, she insisted, her tone resolute. Wait a minute. We're not finished discussing this, I interjected, feeling a sense of urgency. I'm considering returning to my parents' home, so I'd appreciate it if you could arrange to have my belongings sent there, I requested, hoping for some semblance of cooperation. Wait, I have a feeling today will be the last time we see each other. Please take care, she said, her words tinged with finality, leaving me with a sense of resignation. After that incident, I severed all ties with her. Later, I heard she apologized to the acquaintance she had sold the house to without my consent and reimbursed them. The total expenses, including demolition and inconvenience fees, amounted to roughly $170,000. Additionally, despite selling her apartment, its value had decreased since her purchase, leaving her with substantial debt. On the other hand, thanks to her actions, I saved on demolition costs and made a significant profit from selling my house. A new home was constructed on the land where John and I had once lived. Seeing the new house brought back memories of the happy times we shared, evoking both nostalgia and sadness. Despite my reservations, I decided to visit the site. To my surprise, someone I never wished to see again appeared. Well, it's been some time, hasn't it? She greeted me. Why are you here, mother-in-law? I asked, taken aback by her unexpected presence. I'm heading to work, she replied casually. You're going to work now? I questioned, surprised by her response. Yes, she affirmed. So you've started working? I inquired, puzzled by this newfound revelation. I'm drowning in debt because of you, I accused. How can you say that? I'm not responsible for your financial troubles, she retorted defensively. What happened to the assistance you promised with my apartment? I pressed. Our relationship has ended, so any previous agreements are null and void, she replied coldly. John would be devastated by all of this. I would tell him the same, I stated, my voice tinged with sadness. What do you mean? She inquired, her tone softening slightly. John always prioritized me and treated me with kindness. He was considerate, wasn't he? I reminisced. What's your point? She asked, sensing where the conversation was heading. You used to blame me every day, saying that John's death was my fault. I reminded her. And it's the truth. How do you think John would feel if he knew? She fired back. Mother-in-law, if it weren't for John, you would be in a much worse situation. I pointed out. Are you still going to insist on that? Will it change anything? She challenged, her tone bitter with resentment. I have no interest in being lectured by you. With all the money you now have, you should take on some of the debt burden. After all, we're still family, aren't we? She retorted, her tone tinged with bitterness. I never truly cared for you, but I intended to support you because you're John's beloved mother, I confessed. Well, that's the least you can do, she replied, her voice laced with expectation. However, I can't overlook some of the hurtful things you've said and done since my stroke. I can't simply forget the pain caused by your words, I admitted, feeling the weight of unresolved grievances. That was months ago. It's time to let go of grudges, she insisted, brushing off my concerns. It's not easy for the person who was wounded by those words to simply move on, I countered, my frustration mounting. You're quite stubborn, aren't you? Call it what you want, she dismissed, showing no remorse. I'm no longer involved. By the way, shouldn't you be at work by now? I redirected the conversation, eager to end the confrontation. Ah, look at the time. Take care on your way, she responded, avoiding the topic. If it weren't for you, I'd be enjoying a peaceful retirement, I remarked bitterly. It sounds like you regret your decisions. Instead of blaming others, perhaps it's time to reflect on your own actions, she suggested, deflecting any responsibility. After expressing my thoughts to her, I walked away from the confrontation. I recounted. It's only been 2 years since John passed away. Thanks to the financial security he left behind, I've been able to build a stable life. His legacy means everything to me, and I'm determined to honor it wisely. I've invested in an apartment close to my parents' home where I now reside alone. Though I long for John's presence, I take solace in the belief that he watches over me from above. My aim is to lead a long, fulfilling life, cherishing the memories we shared and living for both of us. My ultimate dream is to one day reunite with him in heaven, where we can relive our cherished moments together. I've longed for children, but you're the reason we couldn't have them. My husband spat out, hurling those hurtful words at me after 20 years of marriage. In that moment, I realized I couldn't continue with him. His callousness cut deep and his mind was elsewhere, dreaming of a new life without me. It felt as if some divine eye had witnessed his cruelty. My name is Lisa, 45 years old, a secretary at a law firm. Our marriage, nearing 2 decades, had been modest and childless. Despite our shared desire for children, infertility plagued us, primarily my own struggles. I underwent treatments, exhausting myself physically, emotionally, and financially, only to face disappointment. When I turned 40, we conceded defeat. My husband's desire for children persisted, but I couldn't endure the pain and financial strain any longer. We decided to halt treatments and embrace a childless life, opting for luxury trips instead. Yet the pang of regret lingered, especially when confronted with images of children on TV or greeting cards. Even 5 years post-treatments, guilt and remorse gnawed at me. Then, a school reunion beckoned after a decade. My husband encouraged me to take a break, sensing it as a mini vacation. It felt like a temporary escape from the weight of our childless existence. I realized I had scarcely been out alone since our wedding day, my life consumed by infertility treatments. But a little indulgence now and then couldn't hurt, right? At the venue, catching up with old friends felt refreshing. Lisa, long time no see. You look great, slimmer than before, one friend remarked. Indeed, I had shed about 22 pounds over the past decade. Thanks, I replied with a smile. I envy you. Since marriage and kids, I've gained almost 33 pounds, she lamented. Her words, though innocent, stung a bit. Any kids for you? Another friend asked. No, we couldn't, I replied, feeling the weight of the question. Just the two of us. Oh, sorry for asking such an awkward question, she apologized. No worries, let's just enjoy ourselves, I reassured, trying to maintain a lively atmosphere. As conversation flowed, a startling revelation emerged. My son was nearly caught in a marriage scam recently, one classmate shared. I was taken aback. A scam. Yes, they asked him for $20,000 for their wedding, but it fell through, she explained. What happened next? I inquired, intrigued. He couldn't afford it, so he came to us for advice. That's when we uncovered the scam. The woman vanished, she recounted. It's terrifying, I murmured, shaken by the story. There are some awful people out there, another friend chimed in. Really scary. A marriage scam, I mused, shocked that such deceit could occur so close to home. Thankfully, her son had moved on with a new girlfriend, and the parents seemed relieved. The reunion continued smoothly, eventually winding down. Instead of heading to the after party, I decided to head home, reflecting on the evening's unexpected revelations. I returned to my hotel, savoring a nightcap alone. It struck me, I hadn't checked in with my husband. It was only 10 p.m. He should still be awake. Despite repeated calls, he didn't answer. Perhaps he already turned in. Well, I'd be back tomorrow, so it wasn't a pressing concern. Yet an uneasy feeling gnawed at me. Was it women's intuition? Something felt off. From then on, my husband started arriving home unusually late on weekdays, often inebriated. Hey, I'm home, he slurred one night, collapsing onto the living room floor. Are you okay? I asked, concern creeping into my voice. Shut up, I'm home. Show some respect, he retorted, his words clouded by alcohol. As I tidied up his discarded clothes, he muttered something about Alyssa. You know, if you were as young as Alyssa. Confusion gripped me. Who was Alyssa? What did he mean by his words? Before I could inquire further, he was already asleep. Could he be cheating on me? The unease I felt that day morphed into a creeping certainty. But no, my husband was a good man. It must be drunken nonsense. Yet doubts lingered, unsettling my thoughts. I tried to reassure myself, but my husband's erratic behavior gnawed at me. Weekends meant early departures and late returns, often accompanied by the stench of alcohol. It had become a pattern I could no longer ignore. You're going out drinking almost every day lately. Are we okay? I ventured one evening. Mind your own business. It's my money, he snapped back, dismissive of my concern. But we need to save for our future, I insisted. His response cut deep. Well, I've spent quite a bit on treatments. That's because you're defective. Even in his inebriated state, his words stung. I could have fathomed he'd speak to me that way. As time passed, his disparaging remarks grew more frequent. "Since you can't have kids, you should focus on showing affection to me," he'd say. With each selfish act, my love for him waned. Gone was the caring husband who once supported me through treatments. Would he ever return? After 20 years, I began questioning the essence of our marriage. But before I could confront him about it, he dropped a bombshell. "We need to talk," he said, his demeanor serious. I returned from work to find him on the sofa, his expression grave. "What's wrong? Why are you being so formal?" I asked, sensing something was amiss. "I want a divorce," he declared bluntly. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. "You're joking, right? Why would you say that all of a sudden?" I pleaded, hoping for reassurance. But the idea of divorce had never crossed his mind before. "Yes," he confirmed, leaving me stunned and bewildered. The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Divorce? Had my husband been considering it all along? I confronted him, desperate for clarity. "Out of the blue, you want a divorce? What's going on?" I demanded, my emotions raw. "We've been together for 20 years, haven't we? Let's talk this through," I urged, hoping for understanding. But he met my plea with contempt. "You're clueless, aren't you?" he scoffed, his tone laced with bitterness. Confusion clouded my mind. "What do you mean? For 20 years I've wanted children, but because of you I've been denied that chance," he accused, his words cutting deep. His revelation blindsided me. "That's not fair. We decided together to stop treatments," I countered, feeling the weight of sadness and frustration. "I was never okay with that. I've always wanted a child," he confessed, his voice heavy with regret. Tears threatened to spill as the reality sank in. "Well, if you sign the divorce papers, I won't have anything else to say," he declared proudly, pushing the papers toward me. But his next words struck like lightning. "I've already decided to remarry." "Remarry? With a 20-year-old? I gasped, disbelief coursing through me. "That's right. Alyssa," he confirmed, a smug satisfaction in his tone. Alyssa, the name echoed in my mind, the same name he had mentioned before. Woman's intuition, it seemed, was not to be underestimated. I felt a flicker of self-satisfaction, but I knew it wasn't the time for indulgence. Then my husband showed me a picture of his so-called adorable Alyssa. As I examined it closely, I struggled to contain my laughter. Surely, this had to be a joke. How could something like this be real? I prayed he didn't notice my odd reaction and swiftly composed myself. "So, you really want a child that badly?" I questioned, masking my incredulity. "Yes, because you can't give birth. There's nothing we can do about that, right? You'll agree to the divorce, won't you?" he pressed, oblivious to my internal turmoil. "I suppose there's no choice," I replied, feigning distress, though secretly his sheer idiocy made the decision easier. With each passing moment, the thought of divorcing him grew more appealing. It felt like divine intervention guiding me toward the right path. With a heavy heart, or so I pretended, I signed the divorce papers and left him behind. I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Surely, he would regret his actions soon enough. Time would tell. Fast forward a year after the divorce, and I encountered him on my way home from work. His appearance shocked me. "Lisa, please help me," he pleaded, his shabby appearance a stark contrast to the man I once knew. "Excuse me, who are you?" I asked, genuinely not recognizing him. "It's me, Lisa. I need your help," he insisted, desperation evident in his voice. I hesitated, taken aback by his transformation. "Long time no see," I finally managed, unsure of how to react. In that moment, I realized the tables had turned. It was now his turn to seek assistance, and I held all the cards. "Please introduce me to your company's lawyer," he implored, his request a humbling reminder of his downfall. I couldn't just agree to help out of the blue. It seemed my ex-husband was facing financial troubles. I had sensed it from his appearance, but I never imagined he would change so drastically within a year. "If it's your first consultation, it's free. But to hire them, you'll have to pay their fee," I explained, trying to navigate the situation. "I don't have that kind of money. Please help me," he pleaded, desperation evident in his voice. Perplexed by his sudden predicament, I decided to hear him out. We found ourselves in a nearby cafe, where he began to share his story. "Well, actually," he started, but before he could finish, I interjected. "Did that girl Alyssa run off?" I asked, a sudden realization dawning on me. "How did you know?" he responded, surprise evident in his voice. "Just as I suspected. When you showed me a picture of a girl named Alyssa, it clicked. She looked exactly like the one who killed a classmate's son at a reunion, I explained, recalling the warning given by the classmate about a woman named Sally, approximately 22 years old. Her age and name are probably fake, of course. The swindler wouldn't use her real name, I added, connecting the dots. Of course you knew about Alyssa, didn't you? He questioned, realization settling in. Well, I guess you could say I knew. But what happened? I inquired, eager to unravel the full story. When I pressed my husband for an explanation, this was the story he offered. About a year ago, he met a woman named Alyssa at a nightclub. My husband, who had always harbored a desire for children, seemed to have shared his thoughts with her. It was during one of these conversations that Alyssa made an astonishing offer. She could bear a child for him. Their relationship blossomed from there. He started frequenting the club almost every weekday and spent weekends with Alyssa outside its confines. In the process, he depleted $10,000 from his savings, accumulated during his single days. Despite this, Alyssa never demanded lavish gifts or expensive outings. She was content just to share a drink with him at the club. She was different, he insisted. Not like the stereotypical club girls you often hear about. She didn't care about designer goods or jewelry. She was happy as long as I was there with her. He painted Alyssa as hardworking and sincere, emphasizing their agreement not to touch each other's savings from their single days. I thought it was his money and he could use it as he pleased, I admitted, unaware of his extravagant spending. Then my husband revealed the twist in the tale. Alyssa's true colors had emerged. I wanted to get married, but I had debts totaling about $20,000. Then my husband promised to take on Alyssa's debt and transferred the money to her, I recounted, my voice heavy with regret. They moved in together right after our divorce, but Alyssa continued her nighttime work and rarely came home. Eventually, she quit her job at the club and disappeared, taking all the money with her. How could he be so foolish? I lamented, feeling a sense of despair at having been married to such a man for 20 years. Did you make a promissory note? I inquired, hoping for some semblance of responsibility. A what? My husband looked puzzled. You lent her money, didn't you? Didn't you get a note? I pressed, frustration creeping into my tone. We were going to be a couple, so I didn't do such a thing, he admitted. So, you basically gave her the money, is that it? I asked incredulously. In this case, it seems like you donated $20,000 to Alyssa out of goodwill, I concluded, my disappointment palpable. This woman must be a pro, I mused, realizing the extent of her deception. In the case of donations, if the amount exceeds $11,000 in a year, gift tax is imposed. Depending on the case, the receiver might be taxed. So, Alyssa just took $20,000 in cash and vanished, splitting the money into two parts across 2 different years to avoid taxes. The reason my husband thought she was a good girl who never asked for material gifts was because she knew the law well. So, what should I do? I asked, feeling overwhelmed. I don't know. Maybe consult a lawyer. It'll cost you though, he replied, his shoulders slumping in defeat. All my savings from my single days are gone, and the woman I loved ran away from me. I can't go back on my word to the company about remarrying after boasting about getting a younger wife. Isn't that his own doing? I thought, feeling the weight of my husband's pitiful situation. Lisa, it's my fault. Please come back to me, he pleaded. I realized after you were gone, you were the only one who cared about me. I don't need kids anymore. I'll let you do as you like. You must have been lonely too, right? But his misunderstanding persisted. That matter had ended half a year ago in my mind, so I confronted him with reality. You know, it's been a year. What's with this sudden change of heart? Isn't it a little too late now? Lisa, are you going to abandon me? Well, it was you who pushed for our divorce in the first place, remember? I reminded him. You're the only one I can rely on. My ex-husband looked utterly exhausted, and I decided to show him a little mercy. All right then, shall I call up a lawyer friend of mine? Lisa, thank you. I knew I could count on you, he said, tears welling up in his eyes. Mr. Johnson, the lawyer for my company, arrived at the coffee shop. John, over here, I called out, and my ex-husband seemed somewhat perplexed by our overly familiar demeanor. You see, we've been dating for the past 6 months now, I explained. What was it you needed advice on? As I finished speaking, my ex-husband looked as if he was in a daze. No, well, I think that'll be it for today, he muttered. suddenly snapping back to reality and hurriedly leaving the coffee shop. In the end, he couldn't afford to hire a lawyer and resigned himself to his fate. Rumor had it that his company was abuzz with talk of his unfortunate situation, left by his soon-to-be wife and ignored by his ex-wife. As Mr. Johnson and I spoke later, I confessed the truth about the charade. "I'm sorry for involving you in all this, I apologize." "No worries, Lisa. I'm glad I could be of help," he reassured me. "By the way, do you have any plans after this?" Caught off guard by the unexpected turn of events, I was a little flustered, but a fresh start in my mid-40s didn't seem like such a bad beginning. "Yes, I'd love to," I agreed, certain that a fun-filled future was awaiting me. I couldn't shake off this feeling of excitement. My family's leaving my niece with us. They think we should be happy about it. At the door are my husband's parents and his sister, with her 2-year-old daughter. They've been asking us to look after her since they got divorced half a year ago. Instead of easing off, they're insisting we take her, even though we're not in a position to raise someone else's child. But things are about to take a surprising turn with this little girl. I'm Kelly Allen, and I'm 27. I married John, who's 29 and was running a restaurant when we got married 3 years ago. We hoped to have kids, but it didn't happen. Luckily, Jan has been really kind to us, making our lives busy but fun. I've hardly seen John's family since we got married because he's not close to them. The gap between them got bigger when he opened his restaurant. His parents worked at a big family restaurant chain, and they wanted him to join too. But John had his own dreams. "I want to make dishes that everyone will love," John explained. But instead of understanding him, his sister treated him like he was attacking their family's restaurant chain. "Are you saying our food isn't good enough?" John must have found it frustrating that she wouldn't listen. After endless arguments, John gave up trying to convince them. "I'd rather keep my distance from Mom and Dad." "Okay, I'll stay out of it too," I told him, and we enjoyed our peaceful days together. But everything changed when Jan divorced and moved back in with their parents 6 months ago. One weekday during lunch rush, Jan burst into the restaurant. "I'm here again. It's so quiet in here," she loudly announced, bringing her mother and her 2-year-old niece. They sat down without hesitation. "You're back. Remember to keep it down," John reminded her. "Always complaining. Anyway, I'll have the usual and make it quick." Jane never pays when she visits, and we were getting tired of it. I signaled to John that I'd handle it and stepped in front of Jan. "There are other customers waiting, so if you're dining here, you'll need to pay like everyone else." "What? You're actually charging family? How low can you get?" Jan's outburst drew the attention of everyone in the restaurant. "Please lower your voice. It's disturbing others," I politely requested, but she ignored me. "This is all your fault. John's changed because of you." Her harsh words froze the atmosphere. My husband, stopping his cooking, emerged from the kitchen. "If you're here to cause trouble, please leave. We can discuss any issues later. We'll address any concerns you have, so please stop causing a scene." But Jan continued to complain, ignoring both me and my husband. Even her mother, instead of reprimanding her, just urged her to hurry up and order. Seeing that we couldn't defuse the situation, we served them lunch. They left without paying, acting as if it was normal. But it didn't end there. Jan became even more demanding. "You're looking after Riker today too." Every day, she declared, dropping off her daughter at our shop. "But we're working. It's your job as a mom to take care of her," I protested. "I'm busy. Since there are hardly any customers, you might as well help me out," Jane insisted, pushing her daughter's care onto us. To her, we were just free babysitters. To fully unload her responsibilities, Jan and her mother started visiting our restaurant frequently. "I'm sorry about my family. I didn't mean to cause trouble for you or the restaurant," Kelly, John S. apologized after they left Riker behind and left. Our business wasn't booming, and their disruptions were part of the problem. Our regular customers, who preferred a peaceful atmosphere, stopped coming. It wasn't just about John anymore. Poor Riker was caught in the middle. Holding my niece close, I sighed deeply. We kept going despite the weight on our hearts. But a few weeks later, things took an unexpected turn with my in-laws. One evening, after closing the restaurant, Jan and my in-laws appeared at our doorstep. Instead of at the restaurant, they were at our house. When John and I opened the door, Jan abruptly handed Riker to us, looking bewildered. "I'm leaving my child with you. Appreciate it." John and I were stunned, our eyes wide. What do you mean? I asked, though I suspected it was because we couldn't have kids. You're not busy since the restaurant is quiet, right? So you can be Riker's parents, she explained, deciding to completely abandon her niece. Even the grandparents didn't want to care for her. John's face flushed with anger at their callousness. This is too much. You're giving up on Riker. That's not right. I thought you guys, without kids, could handle her, Jan said, her tone tense. Riker, sensing the tension, nervously sucked her finger and looked down. But you don't have to worry about that. Take her back, I firmly replied. Kids need their moms. Even a 2-year-old knows that. You can't refuse. If there was a serious reason, maybe, but I can't agree to selfish excuses like it's too much trouble. I rejected her request firmly. We're busy with work, and honestly, I don't find a child with my ex-husband's blood cute at all. I said, shocked at my own words. That's something a parent should never say, especially not in front of Riker. It's unacceptable. My in-laws sided with her, sharing her views. Jane and her parents would only make this poor child suffer, they said. Realizing this, I held Riker close, feeling a strong sense of duty. I have to make this child happy. So are you really okay with Riker being our child? I asked Jan firmly. She smirked. Of course, and I'll sell you all her baby stuff and toys. I don't need them anymore, so you better buy everything, she said, her parents smirking behind her. Not only were they avoiding their responsibilities, but they also wanted to make money from us. They were beyond redemption, but if it meant cutting ties with them, it was a win for us. When I talked to John about it, he agreed. Yes, we'll buy everything you're selling. But in return, stay away from us, I told them firmly. Jan stepped closer, asserting, don't act so superior. You're just a daughter-in-law. I was going to sell them anyway. Just be prepared for a big bill. After using us to their advantage, Jan and her parents left in a hurry. True to her word, Jan sent a box of Riker's used toys and clothes, along with a hefty bill of $30,000. With the restaurant struggling and our finances stretched thin, I couldn't afford such extravagance for Riker. But I still had some savings from before I got married. No, this is too expensive. It shouldn't cost that much, I muttered nervously. Despite my concerns about depleting our savings, using items Riker was familiar with might provide her with comfort, right? As I anxiously waited for a response, as I watched my husband in silent contemplation, he finally agreed with me. You're right. Rhea would be happier with us than in her old home. Thank you, honey. Let's take care of this child together. And so, we ended up raising Rhea as our own daughter, alongside managing the restaurant. Without the in-laws around, our stress lessened, and both my husband and I cherished Rhea deeply. She was so sweet, and I felt inspired to do anything for her. But our lives weren't just about adding a new family member. What a busy day it's been. Indeed, who would have thought our restaurant would be so packed? At the end of a long day, my husband and I shared a laugh. Our once quiet restaurant was now booming thanks to a recent addition to the menu, an omelette that had unexpectedly gone viral on social media. What surprised us the most was how this idea came about. Who would have guessed it was Rhea's suggestion? As I affectionately patted her head, I recounted. While we were brainstorming new menu items, Rhea suddenly said omelette. It caught us off guard. Since we didn't offer omelettes at the time, I whipped up a special one loaded with eggs and topped it with our signature demi glace sauce. Following John's approach, we personalized each serving to suit our customers' tastes. It turned out to be a huge hit, and Rhea continued to lend a hand whenever I experimented with new dishes. She'd mumble names like Napoleon or pudding, and when John whipped up those dishes, they were a hit. Customers would exclaim, "This is exactly what I was craving," and happily dig in. With the old challenges of running the restaurant behind us, life became more exciting with Rhea around. I couldn't help but wonder if Rhea possessed some mysterious power. It seemed possible. The other day, when I couldn't find my glasses, Rhea was just staring behind a shelf. Lo and behold, there they were, tucked behind it. Wow, Rhea, that's incredible. Of course, it was all thanks to John's setup. When we praised them, Rhea and my husband would exchange happy smiles. They looked like they had always been a part of our family. Initially worried, I now felt confident about providing Rhea with a good life. Even in ordinary moments, I felt a profound sense of happiness. But then, something unbelievable caught my attention. What's this? Hey, come see this. John, glancing at his phone, exclaimed in surprise. Intrigued, I peered over to look at the screen, where a news article was displayed. The contents shocked me so much that my eyes widened. Can this really happen? Surprised, Rare observed us, then grabbed a box of building blocks and slowly offered it to us. We shook it, hearing something inside. Is there something in here? I asked, meeting Rare's serious gaze. If Rare was this focused, there must be something important. We carefully examined the blocks and were stunned. An underlying anger began to simmer within me. To think she had hidden something like this. Unforgivable. Despite my anger, we knew we had to wait for the right moment. A few weeks later, in the dead of night, Jan and I were startled awake by the doorbell. Careful not to disturb Rare, we cautiously opened the front door to find Jolie standing there with disheveled hair. Give me back my daughter, now. Her sudden demand left John and me exchanging looks. Weren't you the one who left her with us? What's changed now? Weren't we supposed to stay out of each other's lives? I challenged, but before we could shut the door, Jolie forcefully wedged her foot in, refusing to leave. She's my child. I'm here to take her back, she insisted. We explained it wasn't possible, but Jolie kept pushing to take her daughter, causing a scene. Frustrated by her selfishness, I sighed deeply and crossed my arms. Please don't take your frustrations out on us because of your work troubles, I said. Caught off guard, Jolie's face flushed red with embarrassment. What? How did you know about that? She stammered, clearly flustered. Recalling the recent news I had seen on John's phone, it was about a scandal at the chain restaurant where Jolie's family worked. They had been caught using expired ingredients to save money, leading to a widespread food poisoning incident. The backlash on media and social platforms had been severe, and the chain's reputation had taken a nosedive. Everything was fine until we gave up our daughter, and then this happened. It must be because she's gone, I mused. Jolie, clearly facing severe consequences, erupted in anger. What are you talking about? Rare has nothing to do with this. No, she's not involved, I assured her. Since then, everything had been going downhill. According to Jolie, their troubles didn't end there. Her mother lost a wallet containing a large sum of money, and her father was involved in a car accident that cost $6,000 in damages. Jolie blamed Rare for their misfortunes. Since you took Rare, your restaurant has been thriving. It's hard not to think she's involved. Her words left John and me speechless. While we couldn't blame Rare for all their misfortunes, we couldn't deny the strange coincidence. Maybe I should help them a bit. Despite their actions, it's hard to watch them suffer, I pondered aloud. But before I could say more, Jolie raised her voice sharply. With that child, we would be secure, and all this misfortune would come your way instead. Her words extinguished any sympathy I had. We will never give Rare back to you. It's only been a few months, but we've grown to love her as if she were our own. We can't hand her over to someone who only wants her back for their own gain, I declared, glaring at Jolie with a firm expression. Don't speak to my wife like that. Your greed is apparent. I care for Rare far more than you ever did. I won't let her go, no matter what. Please, leave, John added, his tone resolute. I couldn't forgive Jolie for treating her own daughter like a commodity, something to exploit. Our restaurant's success was due to John's meticulous attention to detail, seasoning and presenting each dish according to our customers' preferences. He had utilized hints from Rare to cater to individual tastes, offering rich flavors, light options, or a touch of spice. His creative plating, including edible flowers for Instagram-worthy dishes and generous portions for hearty appetites, had become a hit. While Rare had contributed to our success, it was John's dedication that truly made a difference. She's not a cash cow to be returned, I retorted with disdain. Jolie's face twisted with resentment as Jan looked at her with pity. No matter how much you protest, my decision won't change. I don't want to see you again, Jan stated firmly. With calm resolve, I handed Jolie a flash drive that she hadn't noticed before. Our misfortunes aren't because of Rare, but a consequence of actions like yours, right? Jolie's face paled as she recognized the drive. That's the one my parents and I have been searching for. How did you get it? It came out of the toys, I replied calmly. It might actually be worth what you paid for it, I remarked. The flash drive had been inside the box Rare handed to us, and considering her mysterious abilities, I believed there was a reason she had handled it. To our surprise, the drive contained data from a secret ledger, revealing receipts from suppliers and evidence of inflated charges. Rare's parents, former executives at the company, had been embezzling funds by overcharging for ingredients and pocketing the excess. The calculation showed embezzled funds totaling about $2 million. Rare had sensed something was wrong and hid the drive, along with some blocks. "I can't believe we missed it even after searching the house," Jolie muttered in disbelief. She snatched the flash drive from my hand, looking relieved. "I've already informed your company," she declared confidently. But as the reality of her actions sank in, she began to tremble. "No, if they find out about the embezzlement, our lives are over," she confessed, her bravado crumbling. Begging for forgiveness, she pleaded with us to help cover up her crimes. But her past actions couldn't be erased. My husband, firm in his resolve, advised against forgiveness. "There's nothing more we can do but face reality," he muttered. As Jolie dialed the phone with trembling hands, tears streaking her face, I listened to her conversation with my in-laws. It was a bitter reckoning for them all. They screamed in shock and then asked to speak with me. As soon as I took the phone, my in-laws pleaded, "Please, you have to do something. We're begging you." I listened in silence, but after a moment, I took a deep breath. "You must face the consequences of your own actions. Goodbye." With that, I ended the call and returned the smartphone to Jolie. "Think about it carefully. If you truly want to raise Rare, I'll consider it. Is that what you really want? I doubt we'll ever see eye to eye, no matter how much we talk. Please leave. Your presence is unwelcome. If you don't, I'll have to involve the authorities." Jolie flinched and backed away, so I firmly shut the door without mercy. Peeking from the second-floor window, I watched as she walked away, her figure fading into the distance. That was the end of our connection. Later on, my in-laws and Jolie were dismissed from the company for their embezzlement. They were sued and eventually arrested. After serving their sentences, they would have to repay the $2 million they stole. Even after their release, they would endure the consequences for a long time. It's true what they say, you reap what you sow. Meanwhile, we officially adopted Rare as our daughter. Jen and I continued to manage our restaurant and witness Rare's growth. Our business thrived, and while the extent of Rare's abilities remained unknown, one thing was certain. Jen and I loved Rare more than anyone else. After all, she was our precious daughter. As Mary, nearing her late 50s, reflects on her life, she finds herself at a turning point. With her 2 children, one on the brink of marriage and the other thriving in college, she senses her motherly duties waning. As a former nurse, she contemplates a return to caregiving, feeling the pull of her profession once more. However, life throws her a curveball when she receives distressing news. Her father-in-law, Bob, has suffered a stroke. Rushing to the hospital at her husband John's urgent call, Mary's thoughts swirl with concern. Bob, always a pillar of kindness and warmth, has been grappling with the loss of his wife, Alice, for the past 3 years. Despite Mary's efforts to uplift his spirits through family gatherings and outings, she's noticed a gradual decline in Bob's energy. Just as she begins to see glimmers of his old vitality returning, the news of his stroke hits her like a thunderbolt. Arriving at the hospital, she finds Bob's daughter and son-in-law engaged in conversation, a mix of emotions swirling within her. "Apologies for my tardiness. How's Bob holding up?" I gasped out, hurting to catch up with John's sister, Isabella. Her response was a sigh of irritation as she glanced my way. Clearly annoyed. "You're late. We're in a hurry. Can you handle this?" With that brisk dismissal, she hurried off, leaving me behind. Isabella's indifference towards Bob was palpable, a demeanor she carried even when Alice, Bob's late wife, was alive. Despite Bob and Alice's unwavering kindness, Isabella remained aloof, untouched by their warmth. Left alone in the waiting area, I paced nervously, my thoughts consumed by Bob's condition. Meanwhile, John rushed in, his concern evident in the beads of sweat on his forehead and his soaked dress shirt. "Mary, how's Dad?" he asked anxiously. I shook my head, indicating I had no updates yet. John's reaction was visceral. He dropped the bags he was carrying, his complexion draining of color. "No, that's not what I meant," I reassured him quickly. "He's still in surgery. We're waiting for news." Relief washed over John, evident in the way he retrieved his fallen bags and slumped into a nearby chair. "Should we brace ourselves?" I hurried over to John, who teetered on the edge of tears, and placed a comforting hand on his back. "It'll be all right," I murmured, feeling utterly helpless with no words substantial enough to offer solace. Hours ticked by before the surgery's conclusion, and we were ushered into a small room by the doctor for an update. The surgery went well, but there may be lasting effects, the doctor explained gently, indicating that Bob would require ongoing care. While our hearts hoped for Bob's swift recovery, the reality of caregiving loomed, a responsibility that would involve Isabella and her husband. John and I decided to reach out to Isabella to discuss the next steps. After a conversation, we agreed to convene at Bob's home, a gathering necessitated by the circumstances while Bob remained hospitalized. "I won't be his caregiver," Isabella declared bluntly, sending shockwaves through John and me. "But what are we supposed to do then?" I countered, baffled by her indifference. Isabella, nonchalant, continued toying with her meticulously manicured nails, a stark contrast to the gravity of the conversation. Her husband, Tom, simply nodded along. "What about a nursing home?" I suggested, met with Isabella's vehement refusal. "I'm not wasting money on that. This is what happens whenever I get involved," she snapped, shooting me a venomous glare. "It's like my opinion doesn't matter, so I keep quiet. If he can't go to a facility and neither of you will care for him, what's the plan?" John pressed, frustration seeping into his voice. "That's why you should handle it. I don't want some burden in my home," Isabella chuckled callously, pushing me to my breaking point. "Enough. He's your father, for heaven's sake," I snapped, my patience wearing thin. "I don't care. Why am I expected to bear the responsibility just because he's my father? He's John's father too. I've been saying you two should handle it." "I don't have a response to that. We'd love to care for him at home, but our house isn't equipped for it," I explained, feeling the weight of reality pressing down. "There are too many obstacles, stairs, uneven floors, to bring my father-in-law here. We need significant renovations and we simply can't afford it." "Mary, you're trained in caregiving, aren't you? It shouldn't be a big deal," Isabella remarked smugly, her tone grating on my nerves. John shared my frustration, and we silently agreed to table the discussion for now, retreating from his parents' home. "What's our next move, Mary? You mentioned considering a return to caregiving," John inquired, his concern evident. "It's not just about the job. We have to make this place safe for Dad, and that's a financial challenge," I replied, trying to reassure him. "You're right," John conceded, acknowledging the daunting road ahead. "I estimate it could cost around $100,000. That's just a ballpark figure, but considering the modifications needed for the entire first floor to accommodate him, that's roughly what we're looking at," I mused aloud, grappling with the daunting financial reality. With our eldest still in college, we simply don't have that kind of money. We're still paying off the mortgage, and the thought of taking on another loan for renovations is overwhelming. It's a difficult decision, but should we consider a facility for him? The question is, would he even be able to get in? The waitlists are long, and the expense is significant, and I doubt Isabella and her family would offer any assistance. It feels like we're stuck with no viable solution. Deciding to at least listen to my father-in-law's perspective, I made my way alone to the hospital where he was admitted. Stepping into his room, I was greeted by a sight that lifted my spirits. My father-in-law, visibly improved, greeted me with a warm smile. "Please don't apologize," my father-in-law would often murmur upon my visits. "There's no trouble at all. And look, I've brought you one of your favorite books today." "Why apologize? You're bringing me joy," I'd respond, trying to uplift his spirits. The doctor had informed us of his stroke, leaving him unable to move the right half of his body independently. To read, he'd prop the book on the table, using a weight to keep the pages steady. "Ah, thank you," my father-in-law replied gratefully, accepting the book I'd brought. I gently placed the book by his pillow. "Dad, I came today because I wanted to talk about what lies ahead," I began, meeting his warm smile with a heavy heart. "Oh, I understand. I'll be fine, even in a nursing home. I've prepared for it, so please don't worry," he reassured me, though I sensed a flicker of loneliness in his eyes. "Well, Dad, if you're open to it, why not come stay with us? I have experience in elderly care, and as a stay-at-home mom, I have the time. John will be there too. Let's live together," I blurted out, sensing his solitude. His surprise was evident, perhaps realizing deep down that returning to his own home, where Isabella and her husband resided, might not be feasible. I couldn't shake the feeling that they'd view him as a burden, ultimately leading to a nursing home. The thought weighed heavily on me, overshadowing my initial intention to listen to my father-in-law's wishes. There was a twinge of guilt toward my husband John, but I knew he'd understand. Now, we needed to arrange for his care upon discharge. Money was a concern, so I decided to seek Isabella's input. With these thoughts swirling in my mind, I made my way home. When John returned from work, I recounted the events at the hospital. He appeared troubled but nodded, almost as if he had anticipated this turn of events. Without delay, John dialed Isabella's number. "We're reaching out for assistance because we'll be the ones caring for Dad," John explained, his voice tinged with frustration as their conversation escalated. With a resigned sigh, he ended the call and briefed me on their exchange. Isabella refused to contribute any funds. "It seems there's little we can do about it," he disclosed, his concern evident as he contemplated the financial implications for his father-in-law. From then on, our home buzzed with activity. We deliberated over renovations, essential care supplies, and received guidance on home care options. When I informed my father-in-law that he'd be moving in with us upon discharge, his expression was a mix of gratitude and regret. "Mary, could you fetch the checkbook from over there?" he requested, gesturing toward a cloth bag on the shelf. Curious as to why he'd need it, I obliged, retrieving the checkbook during one of our visits. Observing my father-in-law, I watched as he opened the bank book and presented it to me. "I have some savings here. Could you and John make use of it?" The figure written in the checkbook was staggering, surpassing any amount I'd ever seen. Stunned, I must have appeared frozen, prompting my father-in-law to chuckle. "You and John will be looking after me now, won't you? I heard about the new car and the renovations to make the house accessible. Would $10 million cover it? $10 million. The zeros overwhelmed me, leaving me speechless. I couldn't fathom why my father-in-law had amassed such a fortune, but it seemed that after my mother-in-law's passing, he had turned to investments he had been studying, and they had proven lucrative. His savings had grown exponentially, fueled by his restrained spending habits. Yet even if he intended to renovate the house or purchase a car, the sum seemed excessive. Reluctantly, I returned the bank book, shaking my head. "I can't accept this much. Please keep it for yourself." He pushed the book back toward me, insisting, "I can't possibly use all of this. I'd rather return it to you and your family, who are willing to care for me." Once again faced with the returned bank book, I stood my ground. "I really can't accept such a large sum," I insisted firmly. After a brief pause, my father-in-law proposed, "How about $1 million?" Realizing the impasse, I managed to negotiate a compromise, settling on a reduced amount of $100,000. Though he seemed reluctant, he agreed, and for the time being, that seemed satisfactory. As we were in the midst of this exchange, Isabella suddenly appeared, catching us off guard. Quickly, I stashed the bank book back in its place. Seeing my hurried actions, Isabella's brow furrowed in concern. "What's going on?" she inquired, her voice tinged with worry. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful she hadn't overheard our previous conversation. Isabella had come to deliver some clothes for our father. After a brief exchange, we left the hospital room together. However, on our way home, Isabella suggested stopping by a coffee shop for a discussion. Given her history of bringing up unpleasant topics, I braced myself for what was to come. Reluctantly, I acquiesced, unaware of the twist awaiting us. "I'll take care of Dad," Isabella declared out of the blue, stunning me. Her sudden proposition caught me off guard, especially since we were already knee-deep in preparations to accommodate my father-in-law, including ongoing renovations to our home. I couldn't fathom why she would make such a proposal at this stage. "So you won't need to visit the hospital anymore," she added. "Visiting isn't solely the responsibility of the caregiver. There's no rule dictating that only the caretaker should visit." Why would she say that? I pondered, feeling perplexed by Isabella's unexpected offer. Despite my reservations, I suggested we postpone discussing it further and made my exit from the cafe. Back at home, I shared the encounter with John, who mulled over it before a realization dawned on him. "She must have caught wind of the savings," he concluded. "It seems that's the case," he added. "Otherwise, she wouldn't have volunteered for the caretaking role, especially given her previous reluctance." I harbored a vague suspicion that Isabella had somehow discovered the extent of my father-in-law's savings and was angling to secure a share of it for herself. Perhaps she would concoct a reason to start dipping into the funds. "But what do we do about it?" I queried, feeling a sense of unease. "I got an idea. Let's give her a chance, John suggested with a mischievous grin, hinting at a plan brewing in his mind. Uneasy about his scheme, I opted to stay silent and play along with Isabella's request for the time being. I assured my father-in-law that financial concerns were no longer an issue and that Isabella would be providing care. His response was vague, his expression neither confirming nor denying his comprehension. With that, the conversation concluded. Following his discharge from the hospital, my father-in-law returned to the family home in Nebraska, where Isabella resided. During a visit to the house, I couldn't discern any signs of renovation or adequate caregiving supplies. I questioned whether genuine caregiving could take place under such circumstances. However, it was Isabella's decision, and I felt it wasn't my place to intervene, so I remained silent. 2 months later, I received a frantic call from Isabella. "Mary, I can't do this anymore. Please come over right now," she pleaded urgently. Concerned, I wasted no time and rushed to the house in Nebraska. Upon my arrival, I was greeted by a disarrayed house and a foul odor lingering in the air. Puzzled by the scene before me, Isabella emerged, looking more worn out than ever. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her movements were unsteady. "Are you all right?" I asked, rushing to her side, alarmed by her condition. Isabella grasped my hand tightly and muttered, "Get rid of that." Confused at first, I managed to calm her down and coax an explanation out of her. It appeared that she had underestimated the demands of caregiving. From assisting with mobility and meals to managing incontinence, including dealing with diapers, the responsibilities had overwhelmed her. She felt incapable of managing anything, not even attending to her own needs. I reassured her that I couldn't make any immediate decisions but promised to reach out as soon as possible. With a heavy heart, I carried this burden home with me. "It's been 2 months already." "Impressive," John remarked, glancing at the calendar. It seemed he had anticipated this turn of events. He suggested we pick up my father-in-law on his next day off, and I readily agreed. A few days later, as we arrived at the family home in Nebraska, my father-in-law was already packed and prepared to depart. Relief washed over me knowing we could finally bring him home. Just because I endured for 2 months and used to live here doesn't mean I don't deserve compensation. "I think $5 million sounds fair," Isabella declared suddenly as we were assisting my father-in-law into the car. I froze in disbelief. John, too, was taken aback, turning to face Isabella with a mixture of surprise and dismay. But she remained unfazed, sporting a smug expression. "Isabella, what on earth are you talking about? This isn't the time or place to discuss money, especially not in front of Dad. Remember, he raised us," John reasoned, attempting to appeal to her sense of decency, but his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. "I'm his daughter. It's only fair that I get compensated," Isabella retorted defiantly, her audacity catching me off guard. How could she be so brazen? Appalled by Isabella's attitude, I couldn't hold back. "Isabella, discussing money in this manner is completely inappropriate. Besides, you've already received funds," I interjected, my father-in-law echoing my sentiment with a disbelieving expression. "That's all gone now. Just $5 million. What's the harm in that? If you're just going to squander it away, you might as well put it to good use, sis." Isabella's callous words towards her own father left me speechless. Even my typically composed husband John was visibly enraged, his face flushing red with anger as he glared at his sister. "John, it's all right. She's stating the truth." Bob, my father-in-law, attempted to calm his incensed son. Then, turning to Isabella with a stern demeanor, he delivered his verdict. "Isabella, you are no longer welcome in this house. Leave immediately." His tone was cold and final. Stunned by his words, Isabella stood frozen in shock. What? What are you saying?" "I'm your daughter, Dad," Isabella exclaimed in disbelief. "I have only one child, my son, and this woman beside me, Mary, is my daughter-in-law. I no longer recognize you. Leave with your foolish husband." Bob, my father-in-law, responded with a sternness that startled me. I had only known him to be gentle and soft-spoken, but now his eyes were steely, commanding no opposition. Even Isabella seemed subdued by his authority. "Shall we depart then? We're relying on you moving forward," Bob continued, his demeanor shifting back to its usual warmth as he addressed me. With no other recourse, John and I complied with his directive. As we drove away, leaving Isabella behind in stunned silence, it felt surreal. Later, we learned that Bob had arranged with his lawyer to draft a last will and testament, ensuring that the inheritance would solely benefit John and guaranteeing that Isabella would not receive any portion of it. With Isabella gone, the house stood vacant and John and I expressed our desire to reside there. Bob gladly agreed. Isabella and her husband relocated to an apartment, but it became evident they had been tapping into Bob's finances even when he was in good health. Their extravagant spending habits landed them in debt, and now they struggle to settle it. Each day, I can't shake the feeling that this downfall was bound to happen for someone like Isabella, who lacks respect and gratitude towards her parent, regardless of biological ties. While tending to Bob's needs presents its challenges, my background in caregiving allows me to handle it without feeling burdened, and our relationship remains strong. Waking up to the presence of an ignoramus in the morning was akin to inhaling poison that would linger throughout my workday. Each sunrise brought with it the burden of enduring the condescension of an elite chief, a product of some lofty institution of higher learning. On a particular day, my tolerance reached its breaking point. "Perhaps you should escalate your grievances to our superiors," she taunted. "After all, I belong to the cream of society. Nobody will heed the complaints of a dropout like you." Her smugness was palpable, but a single encounter with the passing company president swiftly altered her demeanor. "Good day, I'm Daniel Smith," he introduced himself. "I landed a sales position at this company's branch straight out of high school. My father's motorcycle accident left him incapacitated, rendering him unable to provide for our family. So I opted to forgo college and joined the workforce to support them, thanks to a referral from my father." The camaraderie among the employees at this company made each workday a delight. My boss is kind, and my coworkers are a breeze to work with, so work-related stress rarely crosses my mind. Yet today, I can't shake off this feeling of melancholy. "Smith, isn't your meeting today with the head office?" a colleague inquired. "Yeah, it is." "Seriously, that means they'll be here, right? I should have taken the day off." "You don't interact with them directly, so just keep it to yourself. I'm already feeling down this morning." Before my colleague could continue, they abruptly changed the topic. "Why was nobody at the entrance to greet me? I was expected, and this is how they welcome me," they grumbled. "Forget it, let's just get to work," they muttered, then hurried away. "Remember that backstabber?" A disgruntled voice, now left with me, seethed. "This place is full of ingrates. It's infuriating that I have to bend over backward just to communicate with them. I sincerely apologize. I didn't anticipate your early arrival." She's Manager Jones, frequently commuting from headquarters for meetings and such. With a degree from a prestigious university, she was recruited as a seasoned executive candidate. Unfortunately, her demeanor often veered into arrogance, belittling employees at the subsidiaries. "They're all just typical uneducated incompetents," she'd sneer, making me look like a fool. "Let's just get this over with. Could you kindly wait a bit longer for another key person to join us? They're en route." "What? You expect me to wait?" My role is to hit the ground running upon arrival from headquarters. This incompetence is beyond belief. I deeply apologize. You're here 20 minutes ahead of schedule, yet you're being unreasonable. I yearned to retort, but the person on the other end was from the head office, an elite recognized by headquarters. I hesitated, unsure of the repercussions if I dared to challenge her authority. We grumble amongst ourselves at the subsidiary, but when it comes down to it, we never confront them, always enduring silently. As I carried on with my usual routine, driving to work one morning, I noticed an elderly lady in distress crouched in the middle of the road. It was clearly an emergency, but those around me either avoided involvement or didn't know how to react, feigning ignorance as they passed her by. "Are you all right, ma'am?" I rushed to her side, but she couldn't respond. Her breathing was labored, and she struggled to speak. "I'm calling an ambulance right away," I announced, swiftly dialing 911. Once the ambulance arrived, we all accompanied the elderly lady to the hospital. "It's all right for you to head home," the nurse reassured us. "We'll take care of her until her family arrives." Having already informed the company of my tardiness and concern for the grandmother's well-being, I opted to stay until her family showed up. Thankfully, her condition wasn't critical, and she was discharged after a few days. We breathed a collective sigh of relief. Then, a few weeks later, out of the blue, I received a transfer order to the headquarters branch office, a directive straight from the president. Contemplating the move, a colleague offered their perspective. "It's a testament to your hard work being recognized. Embrace it and give it your all." Encouraged by their words, I resolved to accept the transfer. My first day at headquarters proved to be quite the whirlwind. Deciding to greet each department individually, I encountered the chief in the corridor and hastened to offer my greetings, but she caught sight of me and shot me a disdainful glance. "What brings you here? Aren't you a bit out of your element?" "Good morning, Chief. I've been reassigned here." "Oh, you're being relocated. What on earth are they thinking?" Disregarding my greeting, the chief launched into a tirade. "Starting my day by sharing airspace with an uneducated imbecile is a surefire way to ruin my entire workday. I apologize if I've inconvenienced you, Chief. Please spare me the pleasantries. Just steer clear of me. I'm busy. Don't get in my way." Clearly in a foul mood, the chief dismissed me with a wave of her hand, as if shooing away bothersome insects. It was evident that any further attempt at conversation would be futile, so I resigned myself to returning to my duties. As I returned to the floor where the chief was, I overheard her berating her subordinate. "You're incompetent. How can you mess up something so simple? Even a new recruit could handle this." "I apologize, colleague." The employee, visibly distraught over her mistake, clenched her fists, lowered her head, and endured the scolding. "If this is how it's going to be, I'd rather have someone else working for me than you. You're no longer of any use to me. Clear out your desk and get out of my sight." With those cutting words, she turned to face me, our eyes meeting. Already discontented, her expression soared further as she glared at me. "Didn't I tell you to stay away from me this morning? Please, Chief, hear me out. I have something to discuss with you today." "Enough. Everyone here is arrogant. I don't have time for incompetent fools like you." With those words, the chief stormed out of the room, slamming the door with all her might. Concerned, I approached the employee who had just faced the chief's wrath, wincing at the resounding crash of the door. "Is this typical of the chief's behavior?" I inquired. According to the employee, it wasn't just typical, it was a daily occurrence. "She's always disrespecting me," he lamented. Worried that the chief might overhear, he hushed me, cautioning, "Shh, she might hear you." Aware of the potential consequences if the chief caught wind of his complaints, I did my best to soothe his frustration. "I've endured this for too long," he confided, shuffling to his desk and retrieving a white envelope from a drawer. "Please don't tell me that's a resignation letter," I implored. "Unfortunately, that's exactly what it was," he confirmed, something he'd been contemplating for some time. "At my previous workplace, every day was serene and fulfilling. But ever since the chief arrived, it's turned into a nightmare," he lamented, tracing the surface of his desk with a heavy sigh. The clutter of documents and notes bespoke his dedication to his job, despite the upheaval. "I understand your frustration. It's disheartening to see your hard work undermined by just one person, the chief. I sympathize. You've poured your heart into this job, longer than she's been here, and you've excelled." But his frustration hung palpably in the air, with no outlet in sight. "The chief might say otherwise, but there are surely colleagues who trust and rely on you. Stay a bit longer for their sake. I'll help shoulder the burden. You're not the one who should walk away," I encouraged. "What do you mean?" he queried, his curiosity piqued as I made my way to confront the chief, leaving him pondering behind. "We can't allow any more employees to be mistreated like him." "That's why I'm here," I declared, trailing after the chief until I found her in the break room, sipping tea. "Mind if I join you?" I inquired. The chief glanced up, her expression pained. "You're still here? You're as persistent as a fly." "I'm just trying to take a break. Please give me some space," she sighed wearily, likely drained from the recent confrontation. Summoning my courage, I addressed her firmly. "Chief, I'll be conducting a thorough investigation into your treatment of our employees. Depending on the findings, appropriate actions will be taken." My direct statement caught the chief off guard. "What are you implying? Are you trying to play the hero to shield incompetence?" "No, that's not my intention. Why don't you go run to your superiors with this? I'm an elite, you know. I have the backing of those above. Nobody will pay heed to a dropout like you from the subsidiary," she retorted dismissively, waving her hand as if to brush off the matter. Suddenly, a man emerged from the other side. "Smith, there you are. How's everything going?" It was the president. "I'm doing my best, thanks to your support." "Ah, hello, Mr. President. What a pleasant surprise to see you here. What happened to the grumpy chief from earlier?" "She's putting on a facade of excellence for those higher up the chain." "I'm glad to hear you're thriving. Have you connected with the new branch manager?" "Huh? What new branch manager? The chief looked puzzled, her gaze unfocused. He's standing right in front of you. Hadn't you been briefed? The president chuckled. This inept employee from a subsidiary company. You're quite the comedian, boss, the chief scoffed, joining in the laughter. The president, however, regarded her with suspicion. What are you talking about? Are you suggesting I'm joking? Understand this. He's now the brand manager of this branch office. It's impolite to label him incompetent, the president admonished. What on earth? The chief shot me a scowl. You didn't bother to inform me earlier, did you? I've already informed the rest of the department. Oh dear, such a rude and ill-informed individual. The chief's face flushed with anger, and she looked on the verge of collapse. Observing the situation with reluctance, the president finally spoke up. Let me shed some light on this remarkable opportunity. This company belonged to his father. Due to a car accident injury, his father couldn't manage it, so I took over. Is he the former president's son? The chief inquired. That's correct. I've been urging him to relocate to headquarters, but he's quite adamant about staying put, the president explained. I apologize. I have a fondness for that place, and I found it satisfying, I replied. What prompted your unexpected arrival here? Why didn't you just continue at the subsidiary? The chief interjected, momentarily forgetting the president's presence as she directed her query at me. The president, accustomed to seeing the chief in a more composed state, was visibly taken aback, his eyes widening in surprise. I made a heartfelt plea to him. He's my mother's savior, her benefactor, I clarified. What about the president's mother? The chief pressed further. Yes, the elderly lady I rescued a few weeks ago happened to be the president's mother. When he arrived at the hospital entrance and found me waiting for her family, I was surprised. I later learned that he was the one who had immediately come to her aid, calling for an ambulance while others ignored her. I felt he deserved better than being relegated to a subsidiary. So, you personally appointed him as branch manager, the president confirmed. That's correct, he nodded. I had my doubts about my qualifications when I was first appointed as branch manager, I admitted. Coming from a subsidiary, it was a sudden shift to leading at the head office. But after hearing from the president and receiving a call from my father urging me to support the company he had built, I made up my mind. That's precisely why I've appointed him as branch manager. Moving forward, I expect you to show him the respect he deserves and heed his directives, the president admonished the chief sternly before exiting the room. That's the explanation, chief, I reiterated as I faced her once more. You've been mistreating not only your subordinates but also those under your direct supervision. I understand the frustration and pain of being belittled simply because of lacking formal education. No. The chief collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face as her pride took a severe blow. It was no small shock for her to suddenly find herself outranked by someone she had long looked down upon for their perceived lack of education. She even threatened to have me dismissed. With that, my ordeal came to an end. The following day, a comprehensive investigation into the chief's conduct was conducted. Numerous employees and subordinates came forward with accounts of her egregious behavior. As a result, disciplinary action was taken. Upon receiving the news, the chief left the company without a word, her spirits seemingly drained. The chief appeared visibly distraught. Considering her high self-esteem, it was understandable. By the way, are you certain you want me to replace the chief? I inquired. I have full confidence in you, the president affirmed. With the chief dismissed, he appointed the individual who had previously endured her wrath. This employee had a long tenure with the company and showed unwavering dedication to their work. Naturally, I had thoroughly vetted his past performance, knowing he had first-hand experience of the frustrations and mistreatment under former Chief Jones. I knew he wouldn't repeat the same mistakes and would prove to be a compassionate leader who understands his employees' feelings, I explained. As for myself, I endeavored to approach my role from the perspective of the employees, not solely as a branch manager. Drawing from my positive experiences with a subsidiary I had previously worked with, I conducted regular interviews with staff, seeking their input. I also organized training sessions for employees in leadership roles, striving to foster a more supportive environment. Through these efforts, the company's culture gradually improved, resembling the positive atmosphere of the subsidiary where I began my career. Will Smith, I apologize for what happened with Jones, but thanks to your efforts, this company is thriving, the president acknowledged. Oh, I'm apprehensive, I admitted. At a later meeting, I found myself summoned to the president's office for a casual coffee chat. He wanted to discuss the recent developments in the workplace. I'm not getting any younger, eventually. I envision Will stepping into my role, the president shared. With all respect, Mr. President, I don't see myself as presidential material. I responded. Why not? Your father would have wanted the same, he countered. I aspire to remain aligned with the employees, working alongside them to support the company and engage with our customers. Once in the president's seat, that connection may become strained, I explained. The president frowned at my words before abruptly excusing himself. You have a unique sense of humor. Most would leap at the opportunity, he remarked upon his departure. Am I considered eccentric? I wondered aloud. No, it's refreshing. It's exactly the kind of mindset we need in a Smith, he assured, giving my shoulder a firm tap. You have a meeting coming up, don't you? Get back to work.